The Differently Brained team acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we record, edit, and stream this podcast. We pay our respects to all First Nations peoples and their elders past, present, and emerging. We extend that respect to all First Nations cultures and their ongoing connection to the lands, waterways, and communities. Let's get into it.
In the event of something happening to me, there is something that I'd like you all to see or listen to. It's an episode of Differently Brained. My name is Lachlan Rutherford.
That's gonna be one of your weirdest song openings. Yeah.
Don't you know the song? It's
No.
so appropriate. It's called the New York mining disaster by the Bee Gees, but I chose it because it's got the word event in it.
Okay, I was absolutely expecting it's my party and I'll cry if I want to.
That's probably
but
better.
No, it's fine. Anyway, you're Lachlan Rutherford. I'm just into Dietrich. And if these oddly placed songs haven't given it away, today we are jumping in and doing a kind of topical episode about holidays, birthdays, events, and mental health and neurodivergence.
Yes.
So Easter has just come and gone. My birthday has just come and gone. Hey! By the time this airs, I will be 31. Currently, I am 30. I will be in my 30s. I will no longer be 30. Not sure how I feel about that. Actually, I do. Not great. I was totally fine turning 30, but being in my 30s, I don't love it as much. But
we'll unpack that for sure, I reckon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, for our Orthodox friends, Orthodox Easter is in just over a month, just under a month. So we thought, what better time to chat about how these kind of events, these celebrations, these holidays, these parties, if you will, impact our mental health and how we navigate them as neurodivergent folk. So I'm going to throw to you, Lachlan, and ask first, how do you go with these kind of moments, these celebrations, these holidays, these events? Are you a Christmas, Easter, birthday guy, or are you like, I'll hide out and I'll see you afterwards?
It's weird because as I've gotten older, and I think this is probably the case with a lot of people, as I've gotten older, I've shifted from being super excited about these events to dreading them, really.
Oh.
And not in a, especially with Christmas, like not in a sort of bar humbug type thing. I hate the commercialism, blah, 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 any of that. It's more personal. And I'll get into that later on. But overall, I tend to either not care as much or I get really anxious about them. Birthdays, interestingly, like only recently since I've turned, well, I'll be 33 this year. Since I turned probably about 29, maybe, I started to just not care as much about them and kind of not really want them to happen. And I reckon that's got something to do with the artificial importance that we place on the fact, like 30, you know, the number 30, and the successive years after that. But yeah, I don't know. I do get very depressed and anxious about big events, and there are reasons why, which we'll get into. And I've actually done a bit of research into, very, very preliminary research into why that can be the case. But what about you, Synjinta? What are your thoughts on events? How are you feeling about, I mean, you said that you were kind of dreading being in your 30s, but what about the actual birthday itself? Are you looking forward to that?
Oh, I'm a celebration fiend. I absolutely love birthdays. I'm that kid who, like, you wake up at 12 a.m. Like, I think there's a How I Met Your Mother episode where it's Lily's birthday and literally the clock flicks over to 12 a.m. and she sits upright and and she's like, it's my birthday. And Marshall has to put a crown on her head and everything before she'll go back to sleep. That is me. Absolutely. Yeah. I am so into birthdays, super into Christmas. Probably not as into Easter as much, I think, potentially because, you know, my family's not particularly religious and it's not necessarily one that, like, I don't know, comes with, like, a bunch of stuff in my family, especially now that I'm dairy intolerant. And so, you know, vegan chocolate is 12 million expensive. And so I can't really participate in eating all this cheap stuff that's around. So, but Christmas and birthdays are really big ones for me. I bloody love a birthday. I've always been pretty good with like the aging thing. I think, that being said, I probably haven't been, and I've just forgotten. Sometimes things feel really big at the moment for me, and then a year later I just completely forgot that they ever happened. And I think, a lot of the reason around being kind of hesitant about being in my 30s as opposed to when I was turning 30 is just the difference in my situation now.
Yeah.
So like when I turned 30, I was feeling very successful in a very traditional way and things like that. I was employed. I'd just gone on my KSP fellowship and things like that. It felt like a lot of things were going in a really, really promising and good direction, and that I was building on things, whereas now I've had a bit more of a stagnant year and a bit of a different bumpy one. So then going into 31 doesn't feel as traditionally successful, which absolutely I'm now starting to break down, constantly working on remembering that success looks different for everyone and what I'm doing is right for me. And just because I'm not a millionaire does not mean that I am worthless, etc., etc., etc.
It's interesting for me hearing that, because when I was younger, I used to get so excited about birthdays and did do the whole, the lead up to the birthday, or the lead up to Christmas as well, was such a wonderful time. Like I loved Christmas Eve, for example, because the build up and the excitement and everything was intoxicating. And I'd sometimes get like emotional about, if it was my birthday coming up, I'd get so excited that I'd get emotional. It was weird.
It's totally fair though, because all of your emotions are heightened. So it's likely that, everything's heightened in those moments. I think it makes complete sense.
Yes. So it's interesting that, like, I don't really know what the crossroads was for me when that stopped being a thing. I mean, I know the general age, but I don't know the reason at all. And I love the fact that you're still super enthused about that kind of thing. I was there for your birthday last year, and it was a big, cool event. In fact, I think I enjoy other people's birthdays a bit more than my own. I think that's probably fair to say.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
For everyone else who doesn't know, I did a murder mystery party last year.
Yes.
So everybody came. It was a 1920s themed murder mystery. I just downloaded one off the internet. We did that. It was very funny. It was pretty poorly written, to be honest. I didn't pay for it. It was just a free one. But I feel like that added to it.
Yes.
And I've always been someone who really loves themed birthdays and events. I really love costume parties and things like that. And I think a big part of that is, so it's not that I love all of the attention being on me necessarily on my birthday. I think it's more that I don't feel like I have to mask as much on my birthday necessarily in terms of how I behave and how happy I am and how excited I am, because it's so normalized that you get really hyped up and you do what you want and you treat yourself, and all of those things become really expected on birthdays and things like that. So then, having the freedom to dress up as other characters and play and do all of these things that I don't think I would normally do, that I definitely mask because, I'm not a cosplayer or anything like that. I think that's a huge part of why I love birthdays, is that it just feels like there's so much more freedom on that day to do what you want and be who you want to be, rather than, if you're doing a 1920s party on any other day, it's self-indulgent and it's people judge you as weird, or because you want to dress up as something different and you want to do different things and stuff like that. So I think for me, it means that, there's that creative outlet that I don't get on other days. The other side of that, though, is, as you get older, you have to organize your own birthday parties. So across my 20s, I really didn't do quite as many exciting things, and the ones that I did have were predominantly organized by other people. So like my mum organized my Doctor Who 21st, which was magical and amazing. Some of our delightful mutual friends made me a Hunger Games birthday one year, like a Capitol themed one, and they all dressed up in just the most ridiculous costumes and had a full table laid out with food. And so I think, yeah, the organization of it makes it a little bit less fun. And it's been a balance over the last few years of knowing that I love these big, fun, ridiculous birthday parties, but also knowing that I'm an adult now and I have to organize those and, you know, accepting that I either need to make the organization of it fun or I need to accept that I need to ask for help while I do it.
Yeah, and as well, like when you're the one who's organizing it, you're not actually organizing an event for yourself anymore. It's an event for other people that you are really hoping that they'll enjoy it, and that's a huge pressure to have to make sure that everyone's going to be catered for and have a good time and everything. So you're effectively like shafting yourself at that point.
But yeah, I think I've found the balance between organizing it for other people and organizing it for myself, especially around the themes and things like that. Like, I know that people don't always love dressing up. I know that it can be a hassle, but it makes it fun for me if I'm sending out invitations and they're themed and things like that. Because, I still send out birthday invitations. I'm cool. If I have more money, you'd also all leave with party bags, but, you know, we're not quite there. Whereas this year looks really, really different because we had the family wedding so recently. I just didn't have the mental capacity or the space to organize something. So this year, instead of overdoing it and stressing myself, I'm just doing lots of little things with different groups of friends instead of having everyone, you know, come to my house or going everywhere and things like that. So yeah, I don't know. Birthdays, man, they're weird.
But you did mention as well that it's not so much having attention focused on you that is the thing that's liberating. It's the fact that you don't have to mask as much. On that, like, how do you cope, generally speaking, with attention being focused on you? Because this is a really interesting one for me, but I want to know what it is for you. Do you relish it? Do you like it? Do you love it?
So I started to unpack this with, I think it was my mental health OT, or maybe it was just a stranger, actually. I'm not sure. I can't remember when this came up. Oh, no, it would have been with my mental health OT. And we were talking about how I'm okay with the focus being on me or going into social events when I'm there for a purpose.
Yep.
So, like, I run workshops in libraries and in schools around writing your identity or starting a podcast and things like that. And I think there's such a confusion for a lot of my friends and family how I get up and I do that, and I do all the public speaking that I have done, you know, since high school. I was in debating and things like that. There's such a disconnect between how unsocial I appear and how reserved and introverted and stuff I generally am, and the fact that that is like quite a large portion, honestly, of what I do now. And I think it's, again, because I have a purpose there. So I can walk into a room and stand in front of a bunch of people and do a thing because there's a purpose, which gives me a set of rules and expectations. So I know how to run a library workshop because I know how they work. I know how to do a birthday now because I now know how they work and what the parameters kind of are. So I know that letting some masks down is safe for me on my birthday because people expect heightened emotion and happiness and excitement and all of that. I also know that as a kid, my birthday was the day that I became like the most horrendous person. And it's a, you know, talking point for my uncle specifically, because I was always such a good and chill and, you know, happy, go with the flow-ish, well, probably just a people-pleasing child, let's be honest, that the only times he ever saw me like full crack tantrums was my birthday, like when someone else won Pass the Parcel or things like that. So I think, you know, balancing, clearly there's a bit of entitlement for me on my birthday if it's my day, is something that I've had to work on as I grew up. But I know that people are going to sing at me. I know that people are going to come to my house and that it's going to be fun. And I do love all of those bits. The part that's I still probably am most uncomfortable with is presents.
Okay.
So I always get really, really awkward because that's the thing, I've never found like a solid set of rules around kind of thing. Like, you know, you get the cake, you sing, cool. I've started singing along now because it makes me feel more comfortable. I sing happy birthday to myself. And so I know how all of that works, but with presents, like, you know, some people want you to open it in front of them. Some people don't mind if you don't open it in front of them. When do you get them? When do you give them? And also, like, my face while I'm processing what it is, I always feel so much pressure to, like, recognize what the present is immediately
Yeah.
and react positively and things like that, which if I'm having like a slow processing day or it's loud or any number of a trillion things, like I could stare at a present for like a solid minute before actually figuring out what it is and reacting.
Hmm.
And I think that's probably where I mask the most
Right.
in terms of I know what is expected in terms of reaction and everything, but there's just so much anxiety around what you're meant to do that, yeah, that's probably still the hardest part and the part that makes me uncomfortable the most, but also I really love presents.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest, I like getting presents. They
Oh,
make
who
me
doesn't,
happy.
man?
It makes me feel special, especially if like they're really, really well thought out. Like, I love a very meaningful present, but it's awkward because I know that, you know, then people look at you like, oh, you like getting presents, you're greedy. And then also if you say I love getting presents and then you don't react like, oh my God, instantly to getting a present, people get confused. And it's like, no, I am feeling that. Just give me a moment to like catch up. But then because you haven't had that initial reaction, I think a lot of people anticipate that pause as a lack of enjoyment.
Yes.
And it just gets awkward. That happens at Christmas and Easter too. Like that's not exclusively a
Not a
birthday thing, the present thing. But is there anything like that in particular that is specifically hardest for you?
I mean, all of it's very difficult. I find when I get cards, especially, I mean, gosh, I love my mum. I love her to bits. And then she write cards for me that are essentially novels of, you know, how much I mean to her and stuff like that. And it's just, you know, every single side of the card is written on. And I read it all through. Yeah, I know, right? And I read it all through and just in silence with her kind of watching me and sometimes taking photos. Actually, photos is another one. I don't like having my photo taken on my birthday of like candid stuff, like opening presents or reading cards or blowing out candles or anything like that. I hate it. But yeah, it's just like the moments where I'm reading these lovely words and there's like the expectance for me to cry or something. I don't know what I'm meant to do. It's weird because I mean, it's not actually that bad to be honest, but the attention thing is strange for me because I switch back and forth between not knowing whether I crave attention or enjoy attention or whether I'm like allergic to it. For those of you who have been listening for a while now, it's probably obvious that I am a pretty shy, introverted individual and I don't really engage that much socially unless I've known the person for a really long time. And that's really got nothing to do with, I guess, my mental health. It's more just who I am as an individual. Maybe it does. Who knows? Maybe it is to do with my mental health, though, because before we started recording today, I did a little bit of reading and I found a website called bphope.com, and it's all articles written by people with bipolar disorder on various different topics. And there was this one article by a woman called Jessica Walker who talks about her feelings towards birthdays and the meaning around them, that kind of thing, and how it becomes difficult when you have bipolar disorder, where you have all of these delusions about how the day is going to be and how people are going to react. And, you know, she talks about having this like huge parade of people who will be focusing all of their attention on her and all that kind of stuff. And then it doesn't happen because that's just not how the world works sometimes. And you get disappointed. And then later on you realize, hang on a minute, I don't actually like that kind of attention. I don't want a parade. That's cool. It's like, that's really like the way that I feel. It's like when we spoke to Steph Liz Cuthbert about her bipolar disorder, she talked about mixed periods. And that's essentially where I'm mostly at. And that is, in essence, a mixed period. It's like I'm shifting from one to the other, not too drastically, but I'm able to recognize that I'm having delusional thoughts. And when they don't happen, that's disappointing. But those thoughts aren't actually like real anyway. It's such a strange and frustrating and exhausting thing to have going on in my head all the time. But by the same token, even though I'll dislike phone calls or responding to Facebook messages or whatever on my birthday, I've actually removed my birthday on Facebook for this reason. I will still get upset if no one like acknowledges that it's my birthday.
Yeah.
It's like counterintuitive. It's self-sabotaging. But anyway.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword situation.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And it sounds kind of similar. It's obviously not exactly the same kind of thing, but it's kind of similar to the birthdays where I have the most mental health issues is when I go in with really big expectations. So, you know, when I potentially leave the planning to someone else, or I expect Lucas to do like a big hurrah kind of thing. And if that doesn't happen exactly the way I imagined it, even if, you know, people make an effort in a different way, that can sometimes, you know, because it hasn't met my expectations, even if it's still good, my brain will still be like, but that's not what you thought was going to happen. And I think that's a routine expectation, mental preparation thing of the autism ADHD of me, of just, you know, knowing what's coming kind of thing. And I think it freaks me out because spontaneity is sometimes good, sometimes bad. So no, that makes a lot of sense for me with the bipolar and the delusions and things like that because, yeah, of course.
Yeah. And the delusions as well, cause I think that possibly may be why I used to get so emotional on the lead up to birthdays and Christmas and stuff, is because I would be having these delusions and they were so extra, you know, like there was so much that they were overwhelming and I get anxiety about the thing. And then later on, you know, when it didn't work out, disillusionment. And I am not suggesting that I know exactly the reason why I used to get so emotional, but that could be a reason, maybe. But yes.
Lovely. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Lachlan, as always. We're going to go to a quick break. And on the other side, we'll talk more birthdays, Easter, Christmas, self-advocacy, and self-care. See you in a minute.
Have you ever tried a natural deodorant? I have. It's a game changer. And it's a game changer for many others as well. So let me tell you a bit more about how you can smell absolutely gorgeous while also not harming your body or the planet. Let me tell you about Wild. Wild is a natural deodorant that actually works. This isn't hyperbole, it does. I'm wearing some right now and it's working. The deodorant sports a fully sustainable design with its aluminium case and biodegradable and recyclable refills. Wild offers the convenience of a subscription for refills, or you can just purchase them as one-offs. You can choose your case color and scent combinations. I've got a black one with my name on it, and a few people have complimented me when I've been wearing the fresh cotton and sea salt scent, so that's pretty nice. And each month there are new limited edition cases and scents. And of course, all of the ingredients are natural and eco-friendly, aluminium and paraben-free, vegan and cruelty-free. Go Wild today with a special discount of 25% off your first order when you use the code DB at checkout. Go to wearewild.com and use code DB at checkout. Enjoy!
All right, folks, in our break, Lachlan asked me to come back from the break with a song, and I couldn't do it, so suck it, Lachlan. No song for you. But this is something that I think probably impacts you more than me, hence why I'm asking you the question. But, you know, there is temporal memory. People connect things. It's a human nature thing to link events and things like that, which if you've had a history of mental health struggles or depression and anxiety, especially linked to events, it can make it fertile ground for further anxiety and depression and mental health issues because of the ruminations and the thoughts that come up. Is this something that gets you, buddy?
Yeah, and it's summer typically. It's one of the reasons why I don't like Christmas so much. There's the fact that it takes part at the end of the year, and it's sort of actually more so than Christmas is New Year's Eve, but it's at the end of the year. It's forcing me to essentially look at previous, months in retrospect and go, well, here I am now. What have I got to show for it, kind of thing. And the fact of the matter is, the past couple of years have been, and by couple I mean like fucking 6, have been very difficult and stagnant for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's around this time of the year, not so much exactly, but, the time that Easter falls fluctuates. It's around this time of the year that my dad died, and my dad, being a minister, was really into Easter. It was like his thing. He really put
It was his jam.
Yeah, it was his jam. And yeah, it just kind of causes me to reflect on him and all of that. And then, my birthday is, another year gone, and I'm older and have not much to show for it. There's all of these other things. And the thing is, like, I'm not a particularly I'm not a supernatural person. I don't even know if that's the correct terminology, but I don't.
Do you mean spiritual?
Maybe spiritual, yeah. I don't see the point in linking events to, or meaningful periods of time to certain events that's happened in the past, and like reading super far into it. I don't think that that's a helpful thing to do, but I do that, and I've been doing that my whole life, basically. I will spend far too much time thinking about things that have happened in relation to things that are happening in the present, to the point where it really just bogs me down and makes me depressed. And I wish I knew how to solve that, but I don't.
Yeah. As always, listeners, we come to you with all the problems and none of the solutions.
Correct. Yes. This is not an advice podcast.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is our free therapy and counseling podcast. No?
Yes. That's right. Yeah. But with that said, though, maybe we can be of some help in regards to talking about self-advocacy when it comes to events and birthdays and blah, 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 blah. First of all, can you tell me what is self-advocacy, Jacinta? Because I don't freaking know.
Yes, but it's going to be absolutely my interpretation of it, not a clinical, smart, or any sort of clever thing.
That's all I'm looking for.
For me, self-advocacy is knowing what you need and voicing it. And I know that can be really, really difficult as someone who often doesn't know what they need. It can be really, really difficult. But for me, it's making sure that if I'm going to do something, that the people involved or me individually have preparations and things set up to make sure that it happens as smoothly as possible, or that it can happen at all. Because, in some instances, without self-advocacy, I can't do things at all if I haven't done the groundwork. So I think it's the groundwork to make sure that your needs are met so that you can either do something that you want to do, or if it's one of those more awkward situations, so that you can do something that is expected of you in a way that is as accessible as possible for you. So the ones that spring to mind for me, I'm very lucky, obviously, that, I love birthdays and parties and all of those things. But the one thing that I do tend to struggle with over these is overbooking or overcommitting. So, I'm very, very lucky that I have a whole group of family and friends who want to see me around my birthday and want to see me around Christmas and things like that, which is beautiful and amazing and fantastic. But having the chronic fatigue as well, I know that in those periods of heightened emotion and things like that, that I'm more likely to have fatigue and run down. And so for me, it's making sure that I actually lock in rest days and I don't overbook or overcommit myself, which is really, really hard. And it genuinely means that it might look very awkward, and let me tell you, it feels very awkward. But over holiday periods and around public holidays and stuff as well, if people message or they call me or something and want to organize something, instead of the flexibility that I imagine maybe other people have, I'll literally pull out my planner and I have to look at what I have, and I can't book in often more than one thing a day.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then I probably need a rest day in between, or it needs to be kind of a locked in block. So a lot of my family is in Geelong. And so if I'm going to see a bunch of them at different houses, or we've got a few things on, I'll need it to be like a 3-day trip. I can't do a day trip down to Geelong. I have to go down, like hypothetically, if there was something that my family was doing on a Saturday, it would be ideal for me to go down on the Friday, stay at my mum's overnight, do the thing on Saturday, stay at my mum's on Saturday night, and then head home. So that means that one family event, that one early Christmas, that one whatever it is, that's a 3-day thing for me, because that's how much time, space, rest I need to make that accessible. And I think, that is something that it is really hard for our community when, if you're an ADHD like me as well, you get excited. You want to do all the things. You don't mean to overbook yourself. You're not doing it intentionally. And at the time, you absolutely think, yeah, I can do all of these things. And then you come to it and you crash, and you either have to cancel, or you put yourself, your health, your rest, your sleep, your all of that in jeopardy because you want to do all those things. So I think that's the biggest one that I take away for me is being mindful of how much you commit to. I have a bunch more, but do you want to jump in with any? Is there anything that you do in particular?
No. It's actually, I wanted to point out, I'm glad that you used the word mindful then, because I was thinking the whole time that this is kind of in lockstep with the concept of mindfulness and gratitude, which we both have a problem with. Just refer to previous episodes. And, I think when you are in these heightened senses of emotion and excitement and whatnot, it's very hard to be mindful of, well, it is for me, to be mindful of when I'm getting maybe a bit manic or a little bit delusional or expecting things that aren't realistically going to happen. And I mean, I guess the one thing that I do, or have learned to do, and I'm still not very good at it, because part of my mind is always, I guess, living in a hopeful fantasy land. But I try to temper my expectations of the event, like I try not to think that it's going to go a certain way for bad or good. And when I do focus on the concept that, oh gosh, this day's going to go terribly, it's going to be a disaster, I'm going to have a terrible time, and then when it doesn't, that's always a nice feeling. But I do not recommend doing that to anyone. I don't agree with the idea of like lowering your expectations so much to the point where you're actively being negative about it from the get-go. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But managing your expectations, trying not to, I guess, take it as a reflection on who you are as a person or what you mean to other people if things don't quite go the way that you expect them to, that's all probably sound advice, I'd imagine. The other thing as well, when on my birthday, for example, a lot of people might want to hang out with me because I'm like super popular and stuff. And I will sometimes get messages from people wanting to do stuff for my birthday. And more often than not, I would like to do one thing with many people, not several things over the course of weeks or whatever. And I know that that's not something that is always going to be feasible because people have got work or other commitments and all that kind of stuff. Frankly, I would rather do nothing at all sometimes. But yeah, when I get those messages from people wanting to hang out and do stuff, my immediate reaction is always to say, yes, I'd love to, because I'm a people pleaser. That's what I do. I like to make sure that the people who want to do stuff for me that they have their needs met, because it's nice of them to want to do something for me. I love that they would want to do that. But the reality is I get burnt out from multiple modes of contact and would much rather sometimes say no. And so boundary setting is obviously very important, but doing so in such a way that's not going to make you feel uncomfortable. I wish I knew how to set boundaries in a proper way. a healthy way. But the reality is I tend to just say yes to things.
I think it's really interesting that you bring that up because, yeah, absolutely, no is a full sentence. And I know it can be really, really difficult to say. But at the end of the day, if you're going to burn yourself out over it, it's not in anyone's best interest. But I'm
Yeah.
really interested that you prefer to do one big party with a lot of people, because I know of others who go the opposite way. And
Mm.
so they spread out birthdays across a couple of days or across a long weekend kind of thing, and they do lots of smaller events with people. So our beautiful friend of the show, Kay Kerr, her and her gorgeous daughter are both early April babies as well. They celebrated their birthday last week. And I know that for Kay and her family, they set up a few like one-on-one play dates across the weekend with, all the things that you'd normally do. This year it was Taylor Swift bracelets and really leaning into her daughter's interests at the moment. But it was, spacing them out and seeing friends, but seeing them individually at home in an environment that is safe and comfortable. And so I think it's all about, sitting down and thinking about how you want to celebrate those moments and then making sure that that's how you do it. And I know that can be really, really hard, especially when it doesn't meet expectations, like you don't have a big party, like you only see a handful of people or you spread them out, or that, everyone is given a date and a time, and if they can make it, great, and if they can't, there's no hard feelings kind of thing. I think the biggest part about, setting boundaries is knowing that that's what's going to be best for you. And as lovely and gorgeous and wonderful it is that all those people want to see you, they also don't want you to be harmed or upset or stressed or burnt out because there've been an extra demand on you. I think that's something really important to remember, is that, around these moments, you're absolutely right. A lot of people want to see you, but it's out of love and it's out of support. And so if you're honest with them, and I know it can be really awkward and really hard, and some families, some friends won't understand, but those who will be so supportive. And I think those are the baby steps into further self-advocacy around these kind of dates. That's the baby step into saying, hey, I can come, but only for an hour. That's the lead up into, hey, I can come, but I'm going to bring my own food, or I'm going to bring my own utensils, or whatever it is that you need to make that event more comfortable in future if you want to, or just saying no. I know that it's easier said than done, but many of the people who want to see you in these moments love you dearly, and they don't want to be the reason that you're burnt out. And if you explain that, more often than not, maybe I'm just really lucky, but more often than not, it's been a very supportive and understanding and workable situation for me, where we then find out what would work.
I think as well, if there isn't an understanding, a mutual understanding between you and the person who's wanting to do something with you, but you would rather not, I think that, and again, this is easier said than done, and I'm being an absolute hypocrite when I say this, but don't take it as you being a bad friend if you say no. I think that's important. Or you being a bad family member, or you being ungrateful. Part of the whole self-advocacy thing is to negate, or not negate, but steer away from those kind of thoughts, and instead focus on the fact that, focus on the facts, which might be, you're burnt out and you don't want to see many people, and that's fine. That's a valid thing.
Absolutely. I think the final big self-advocacy thing around, holidays and events that I've learned from watching other people is that, like we discussed, all of these things, especially birthdays, I guess, and New Year's, come with a lot of like extra pressure and demand. And, there are those phone calls, those Facebook messages, those text messages, everything that comes in, because people genuinely want to wish you well. They want to wish you a happy New Year. They want to wish you a happy birthday. And I know that feels like such an extra demand and a pressure to get back to all of those people, to tell them that you're grateful or thank you. And, that's prevalent across our community, whether you have a PDA profile or not, to be honest. So it's not something that I struggle with. I'm really, really lucky that, hit me up. I want your messages all the time. Actually, I'm worse at answering messages on every other day of the year except for New Year's and birthdays
same.
and such.
Yeah.
But, you know, I have a few different friends who really struggle with this. I know Lucas particularly struggles with this where, you know, he feels not as genuine when you send, you know, the same thank you message a million times over, even though he does mean it. And also because in his mind, it's a lot of pressure to get back to everyone. And so the things that, you know, we're kind of working on and that I've seen other people do that's worked is if you have work that day, if you're busy that day, if you have events, put your phone on Do Not Disturb. I absolutely know what that sounds like. And so many people have just gasped and freaked and had a little panic attack. And I get it. But also, like, if that's going to stop you from enjoying the day, if that's going to stop you from being able to focus on whatever it is that you need to do that day, it's absolutely best for you to put that boundary in place. Because if the constant notifications, regardless of whether it is a birthday message or not, if that notification noise or that vibration sets you off because it might be a birthday noise, it's absolutely better for you to turn your phone off or put it on Do Not Disturb. You know, we let close family members know in advance now that that's what we're going to do, so that then if there is an emergency, they know that they either need to get contact through me on my phone or, you know, some phones have the setting of if someone calls twice, it'll let it through, twice within a certain amount of time or something. So that then there's not that pressure on that day. And then, you know, most often Lucas goes back and he answers them the next day. And he feels so much better answering them the next day. I don't know what the difference is, but honestly, it doesn't matter what the difference is because that's what works. And that's a way of reducing his anxiety and his stresses on Christmas and birthdays and things like that. I know someone else who does the same thing. They put their phone on Do Not Disturb and then they just send out a bulk message on either Facebook or they send a group message thanking everyone. And I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
I'm a serial birthday messenger, except for the people who I have specifically had it articulated to me that they do not like receiving birthday messages. And I'm not offended at all if someone doesn't respond. Because for me, it's not about whether they've responded and acknowledged my thing. It's that I love that person and I want to wish them a happy birthday. It doesn't matter to me if I don't need the pat on the back or the kiss on the forehead or whatever it is. I don't need them to say, yes, yes, thank you. I feel your love. Because for me, the birthday message is just that I love them and I want them to know that I'm thinking of them on that day kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you can't respond to birthday messages, if you can't respond to New Year's messages, Christmas messages, just don't. I understand that, again, that might cause some tension and drama, but potentially that opens a conversation to explain why you don't respond to those messages and to explain the pressure or the demands that those place on you and how they impact your mental health on those days. And that could also lead into, you know, better boundary setting, more opportunities for accessibility needs to be met, all of those things that could make these days genuinely more enjoyable for our beautiful community.
Yeah. I've got a question for you, Jacinta.
Yeah, boy.
This is a bit of an interesting one, in my opinion. Even though this episode's kind of about events in general, we've kind of been focusing on birthdays a lot. So I want to know, what is your ideal birthday celebration that's going to be the most sort of accommodating towards your neurodivergence?
Oh, that's a good question. I absolutely thought you were just asking for my ideal birthday situation, and I was like, you absolutely know what this is. But most accommodating to my new.
Say both. Both is good.
Well, I'm trying to think. And it's okay. So my ideal birthday party is obviously Bilbo Baggins' birthday party from Lord of the Rings. What a time. Except I'm not going to, slip on a magic ring and piss off. That's not my vibe. And also probably not like the whole town. That seems a bit much.
That's a bit much, yeah.
Don't show up if I haven't invited you. That's too weird. But absolutely, my ideal birthday party is a bunch of food, a bunch of drinks, a bunch of friends, some dancing. I bloody love a good boogie, love a good dance.
I never dance. I don't know. Don't see the appeal.
Fair enough. Well, I do, and it's great. We're
kidding.
great at it. What are you talking about? And like when I say like a hobbit, I literally mean we all dress up as hobbits. Like, and we honestly, millionaire birthday is we go to Hobbiton, we hire it out, and we just go to town. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of what's most accessible for my neurodivergence, I don't actually know because, like I said, I'm pretty good with parties, I think, and my problem is that I overdo it. So I think the biggest thing would be that I'd need to set aside probably 2 or 3 days afterwards to rest and recover. As much as I'm like, initially I was torn, but I think I would have to be the organizer. I would have to be the planner so that it all looked exactly as I wanted, because I have very, very specific ideas on what my Hobbit birthday would look like. So I think to ensure that it met my expectations, I would have to be involved in every stage, and I would absolutely be a micromanager. Things like the birthday cake, I don't really care about, so that I could offload onto someone else. I'm not really a big cake girl. Like this year, literally, I bought myself a tub of the connoisseur plant-based ice cream instead of a cake, because I don't really love cake. It feels weird in my mouth. I don't understand what people mean between moist and dry cake. It's all dry. Yeah, I don't dig it. It's got like a weird bread texture. I don't like bread much. Anyways, I'm more of an ice cream gal. So as long as I said ice cream cake and it didn't turn out to taste like basil like last year's, then we would be fine. But still, that was something that was still a hilarious story, because that's not part of the birthday that I envision to a T kind of thing. So yeah, I think the big ones would be a magical Hobbit birthday. We would all dress as hobbits and everyone would have to. And I literally mean you can't come into the party if you are not dressed like a hobbit.
No admittance except in hobbit outfit.
Absolutely. And I would have to plan the majority of it, and I would just have to let the bits that I don't have strong attachment to, someone else would have to do those, because I would absolutely overdo it and exhaust myself on the bits that I care about.
Yeah.
What is your ideal birthday look like?
Well, I mean, I asked you the question without having an answer of my own. But I think, you know how like the whole thing of a surprise birthday, the trope of like, oh, everyone's forgotten my birthday, no one loves me, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden everyone did actually remember your birthday and they've gone to plan something amazing for you. I like that, but also without the feeling of rejection that happens in the interim. Yeah. I think that my ideal birthday would be one where, I mean, the Hobbit one is amazing, but I want someone to plan it for me, and that they've basically existed inside my mind for at least a week and understood exactly what I want, and then just done it. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
I see. Yeah, yours is feeling a little less accessible than mine. Mine, I just need like millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Yours...
I mean, failing that, a huge warehouse, right? With a podium up the front, not just like a regular sort of DJ podium, but like a really tall lectern that I stand at for the entire night, watching everyone down below as they eat birthday cake and drink Mountain Dew or whatever, and that's it. I don't want to have to interact with them. I just want to be seen.
So essentially the end part of Bilbo's party, right as he stops talking, right before he puts on the ring. Is that what you mean?
Yes,
sure.
That's exactly right.
Interesting. Wow. Well, this has been absolutely amazing. I would love to hear everybody else's, one, their self-advocacy around their birthdays and Easter and events like that. And two, what is your ideal birthday party, basically? Because I'm now obsessed with asking people this. Your absolute ideal birthday and the accessibility requirements, supports that you need to pull that off. But yeah, hit us up on the Facebook page. I will definitely put a post up for this one because I am obsessed. And I so badly want to hear all of this. So let us know. Otherwise, we're on Instagram. We're on the Twits, but we don't really use it. We're always open to messages. But absolutely, please come and join us in the Facebook group. It's our favorite place to be. Please start dropping posts in there, chatting with us, doing whatever you want. But thank you, everyone, for being here. And happy birthday to me, right?
Happy birthday, Jacinta! And
Thanks!
Merry Christmas.
There's no Easter thing I can think of. Anyway, we'll see you next week.
Bye! Differently Brained shares the opinions of individuals and does not consider your personal circumstances. Differently Brained exists purely for information purposes and should not be relied on as health or medical advice. Because no brain is the same, please consult your healthcare professional for your personal medical needs.